Hello, and welcome to my show TikTok, where we talk about what makes successful people tick and what it took for them to pursue their passions, follow their dreams, and achieve their goals. Today, September 21, is an important day and hopefully a day we will hashtag never forget. And our guest today was especially chosen not only to help us remind ourselves of this day and what it should mean to all of us, but also to awaken and inspire us to live a life of intention, purpose, and meaning the way she has lived hers. Please welcome the founder of Rock Ed and Project Steady, alternative educator, volunteerism, and mental health advocate, entrepreneur, and art therapist, Gang Badoy Capati.
Yay!
Hello, yay!
I had prepared a scarf, Myrza.
Oh, okay.
I thought the shades will have to do for now, but I'm gonna get rid of it.
Right. We were intending to look very 70s
I know.
today, and so
I tried, but then the top works and my shades work. But I'm gonna have to change.
right. We'll just rely on our memory.
Yes, maybe that makes what do you call it? When there's no external reminder, it pushes your internal to be more accurate, like more muscles. Or when one sense is deprived, then maybe we'll remember better. Okay.
Right. So belated happy birthday.
Thank you. I know, thanks. I know.
Meron kang ka-birthday na occasion happening today. Almost ka-birthday except for 1 year later and 1 month later.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
It's the 48th birthday of the Declaration of Martial Law. Matching buntong hinga.
Yung deep inhale na yon, Myrza, it's really because I just realized, and we were talking about this the other
right. We were.
It's my whole life apparently, and
yes.
I am at an age right now where clearly I can still clearly remember things. It's not, and it's not what do you call it? It's not as clouded as I thought it would be.
Yes.
And I'm also old enough to see the cycle return.
Right. We are our elders in our youth. Remember, there were always stories of the war. Like our parents would admonish us, "Huwag niyong sasayangan yung pagkain." During the war, tayo na yun ngayon to the younger generation who have no clue, right?
This is also what I keep discussing. I think that I could never really grasp what my mom would say about the Japanese occupation and how there was real fear, true destruction of the city, and etc.
Right.
When I was growing up, and to this day, we embrace everything Japanese, from food to etc. And it's not so much to harbor hatred. I don't think it's that. I think it's just to recognize that it happened.
Yes.
Acknowledge that there were atrocities.
Yes.
And then also to acknowledge that the Japanese government existing undertook a lot of effort to have reparation.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, Myrza, because my mother, she was 10 when the war started. 14, 14 when it ended, and she knows this because her birthday is the day Pearl Harbor was bombed, so she kind of really marked it December 8th. And she said, by the time 1953 rolled around, which is just maybe a decade or so later, college na siya, she was sent to Japan. My mom, by the school, Philippine Women's University.
Okay.
To represent the Philippines in the first ever student peace mission post-war.
Wow, so what was that like?
So of course it's an oft-repeated story in my home. She went with a colleague. I think that colleague is now gone, named Estelita Huco. And the reason why she went with my mom is because she she's passed away now, was an amputee. Like she lost an arm as a child from the Japanese occupation. I thought that was really poetic / mean of the government to send a beautiful woman with an amputated arm and to say to the Japanese, look what you've done.
Pang-pag-guilty pa lalo.
Which means, ganun ka-real sa mami ko yung Japanese word.
Yes,
Kahit
yes.
yung stories, kahit ang daming picture, hindi ko nagagrab. And then I realized, the goal pala is not to hate the Japanese. That's not the goal. The goal is to acknowledge destruction happened, never to have that repeated.
Right,
And we're lucky. I think the entire globe is lucky that it's the Japanese themselves that declared
right.
an army. We're gonna do reparations. There will be scholarships. Get to know our culture. That was a hiccup in our history. Lots of apologies.
And
Maybe
the
cool.
way and the way it's inculcated in the school system, I mean, every Japanese citizen, if you just mention anything about World War II, they're very embarrassed. They're like get all flustered.
There is an institutional agreement that it's not an era they were proud of, and even globally, and and their government present incumbent, including monarchy, I suppose,
Right,
made big decisions to actually express to the world remorse,
right,
reparation. It comes in many forms.
right.
JICA, yung Japanese aid, it comes in the form of scholarships, the Mambushu scholarship. Yeah, and so I think the reason why we started with the Japanese war is because it's almost the parallel
Yes,
for me and my nephews and nieces regarding martial law.
right,
And it seems like no matter how I explain, the texture is missed. You miss
right,
the because that's what we will talk about this afternoon, right?
right.
So okay.
So rewind to the memory of, I don't know if you have a memory of your first birthday.
Um, no,
After ka birthday mo pa lang when martial law was declared, and you said your mother was
went with me with the constitutional when the constitutional.
right. During the
So
con, she was still pregnant with you, and then you just turned one
yeah,
with
and
the
then
combat chairs and balloons.
I have pictures. Ganito yun what I want to share. There's just a lot of people in the Senate or even in government that's exactly my age. Okay, like Sani Angara is one. We're really the same age. And interestingly enough, even my friend Aisha Alonto from Mindanao is also exactly my age. And it's so curious how there's another the daughter of Richard Gordon, Marnie. I met her in college. I realized that we're all the same age, and all our mothers were pregnant with us
Wow.
during our fathers being in the Constitutional Convention. Because
Oh,
you knew
wow.
what our fathers had in common was that they were all con delegates. For those
Okay.
who don't know, the Constitutional Convention was formed by President Marcos that time, 1971, which was 6 years after his first term, to charter change, basically change the government. And they had representatives per region. So my father was one. Sonny Angara's father was a con delegate. Richard Gordon, present Senate, was a youth representative. And
Wow.
I know, isn't that interesting? And then everyone, etc. And if you are a student of psychology, you know that your time in the womb really influences you. I mean, even
Oh,
if you try to dig in, I think it's also very interesting to get to know what was your mom like, what was the situation
right,
like
right.
when she bore you. And so that was part of where I started. So I have pictures of my mother pregnant in the PICC, going, not PICC, going to the convention and then having a formal portrait with all the delegates. And I see a lot of the parents of people who are presently in government. So I realized, shucks, a lot of us yata when we were in the womb would hear some sort of hope, changing of a constitution, finally coming up with a constitution that's our own and not cut and pasted from the US.
Right.
Our fathers, like quite literally, I'm sure there were mothers too, but our fathers were really involved in this charter changing, and I think we felt that. And I also think as 1 year olds naramdaman din namin siguro yung shift and shock na
Yeah,
parang, wait, we had a constitutional convention that gathered the finest minds representing all sectors and regions, and we wanted a new Philippines. That's why they
right.
called it Lipunan.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, they declared martial law. And then all of a sudden, there's no elections. Like, who will succeed this president? Please remember, noong 1971, dapat may elections na. And dapat ibang president na by that time. But President Marcos stayed. And fact is, he stayed until 1986.
True.
With 1 or 2 elections in between that, of course, were bogus because who ran against him? Some guy named Alejo Santos in 1981. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't even think he'll win barangay captain, but he ran anyway. But grabe, no? So I have a feeling, as pre-toddlers with no cognitive memory of it, I think we felt it. I think as children, we felt it. Because,
Right.
toddlers, we bumabagay tayo sa situation. You
Right.
can't. If you cry, somebody says no or slaps.
Yes,
if that's
yes.
and if you don't cry and you hold it back, you are hugged. So as toddlers, we instinctively knew how to react. So
Right.
even if we didn't read the Dario at that
Right.
time,
I'm 4 years older than you, so my
Okay.
memories of that time was through the lens of my yaya.
Okay.
And my yaya was very much a consumer of mass media. And so I knew through the yaya, of course, I'm the alaga, I knew the song May Bagong Silang by heart.
Oh, yeah.
So, the black and white film showing the progress of the Bagong Lipunan. Through my yaya, I would hear, "Huwag kang maingay, bibigay kita sa Metrocom." Sige,
Yes.
papaluin ka ng Metrocom. Tignan mo yung mga estudyante, ang gulo-gulo nila. Tignan mo
I
yung
know.
mga taga-UP. Diba? Protesta ng protesta, kinulong tuloy sila. So that is the kind of fear I grew up with as a child. And of course, there was curfew and there was rationing. I remember seeing rice in jars, may bigas in jars. And I'm like, bakit may bigas in jars? And then my parents said, "Huwag kang maingay, huwag mong sasabing may bigas tayo."
Just in case, right?
Kasi bawal yun. Yung iba, mais lang kinakain nila. Yung mga ganyan na memories.
I mean, can you imagine, Myrza? We were children who were threatened to behave with the police.
Yes.
Taking us. And if you look at the mandate of the police in any country,
It
it's
is
supposed to really protect.
to keep us safe.
So I'm sure as 4-year-olds, and the minute we started having cognitive capacities, there must have been some confusion there. I'm sure there were questions like, "Ma, why am I afraid of the police?" I don't think it was ever
Right.
verbal that way, but I think
Right.
instinctively we knew. Because
Right.
I was, up until college, I knew that if I got into trouble, I won't call police.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How is that even?
Right.
We have to recognize these things, because these are the micro oppressions. These are the
Yes.
micro confusions that really. Can you imagine? You are in trouble and you don't.
Yes. Instead, you were given a calling card of a name that you are supposed to give to the police
Yes, that's
for
another
your
thing.
safety.
That's another thing we should talk about, because there were. It was a great divide. It was either you're for the Marcos family, who held all positions at institutions, or you were not with them, and very
Right.
few were out and out.
Right.
A lot, if my memory serves me right, a lot would stay silent, would really stay silent for many reasons. Protect
Right.
protect business, protect etc. Protect physically, because of
Right.
all the real and documented desaparecidos, like students
Right.
from rallies. There
Right.
are torture marks, etc. There are negotiations from above and below, and who's the uncle of who, just to release a nephew who got arrested. I have a brother who had I'm the youngest of 10 of my mom's children, and my eldest brother actually experienced a haircut in a precinct, because he had
Right.
because he had long hair, and
Pag-uwi
police
niya, kalbo na
haircuts. I know. Hindi naman kalbo, pero parang super, super crew cut like CMT. And
Right. And that was the norm. That was the norm then,
Can you
right? Hindi ka na nagulat.
can you imagine, for us, it was funny? Kasi
Right.
funny, nagupitan kuya mo ng police, di ba? Pero
Right.
isipin mo siya ngayon not even in metaphor, like in large, in a philosophical manner. What an invasion!
Right.
you I mean, that's your hair. It's stuck to your skull, by the way. And they just went in. It's not even about style, or it's not
Right.
even about haircut or looks, you know. It's really
Yes.
a foundation of your person. And
Right.
those who had their long hair cut, those were even the lucky ones, because they got to go home and all they had to show
Yes.
was the shaved
Right.
head.
Right.
Others had disappeared, you know.
Right.
Uh,
I remember being a student in UP, 80s na yun ah. Well, I entered in 82. Every
Oo.
time magbabagsak ng Malaya newspaper, they would just like dump it in the hallway, like bug, and then agawan, right?
Yeah.
Agawan. And then you kept your copy and you read it only on campus
Yes.
because you did not dare read it outside of campus. Kasi pag nahuli ka ng police or whoever magsumbong sa'yo,
Yeah.
hindi mo alam mangyayari sa'yo. And that's just like
Grabe, no?
a
Grabe.
periodical.
You know, if you're listening, or you're watching right now, whether it's right this minute, like live, or on YouTube 10 years from now, I really think you should remember this. Imagine we were not even safe to be seen with a copy of a newspaper called Malaya, which means freedom in
Right,
Filipino.
right.
And we were also to, I'm sorry, what's that noisy? to and to connect it today, which is September 21, 2020, just to connect it, the editor-in-chief of We Forum, another newspaper that's very brave and
Yes.
really spoke of the atrocities of the Marcoses, and even just the facts on how our money was handled, the coffers were handled, the editor-in-chief was Jose Burgos, and his son,
Yes.
many years later, also disappeared. And to this day, Jonas Burgos is also still in the desaparecido list. We haven't found him. So if you have time, whether you're watching it today, September 21, 2020, or 10 years from now on YouTube, Google it. Google Jonas Burgos, Jose Burgos, which means I think we're still fighting something, and
Right.
quote unquote, and I don't know what we're fighting anymore, because it has morphed so much, that it doesn't have the same obvious face as it was in martial law, where it was a clear administration. And it's
Right.
also grabe, nakakalito rin for me sometimes when I read
Right.
the headlines these days, because it's so similar, and startlingly
Right.
these events are leading up to something that I've seen, and I can't quite
Right.
place a finger on it. And it's so strange kasi this administration, I don't know what your political leaning is, but this administration certainly has made decisions and presidential decrees that resemble closely
Right.
time. I don't, I'm so wala, it's so
Deja vu
dispassionate.
talaga.
Passionate na nga for me. Parang somebody asked me, "Aren't you mad? Aren't you mad? And aren't you angry anymore?" And you know what I realized, Mirza? I've been mad for so long. Wala na siyang feeling. I just wanna
Yeah.
thing. I guess it's a lot like love. Anger is a lot like love. Like you fall in love and you still feel everything, and so it's on fire. It's large fire, like a flame. And then if you're lucky, it evolves into a smaller blue flame, and you just show up with the action of love. So like you're there, you're faithful, you're understanding, etc. Jack and Poy with the dishes. uh I think it's the same with my anger regarding our freedom. I
Right.
don't have the big flame anymore. Like I can't, there's no energy to rant as much as I used to. I occasionally do though, but
Yeah.
now it's more an action thing, so I'm non-stop. So when
Yeah.
somebody invites me to discuss martial law in any form, I really grab it. And sometimes kahit hindi yun yung topic, I bring it up. You know? Like
Well,
one of
thank
those.
you for reigniting the flame. Here, we're gonna retrace the early makings of that flame from your childhood. Para ba siyang when they say Pilipinas ang hirap mong mahalin, siguro kung asawa mo nga yung Pilipinas, medyo ikinapapagod na nating lahat. But just to trace that flame, you're born the youngest of 15 children.
Yes,
Five from your dad's first wife.
yes, who died in
And
1967. And my mom
and
was
then
on the same year.
number 15. How did your birth order shape your personality? Must have been hard to get anyone's attention.
Uh, it was, well, because I'm a therapist. I com It doesn't make me not sad or have less trauma.
Right.
It just
The
me under
process mo na.
it just makes me understand it more, and I have the language for the trauma. But I certainly
Trauma talaga.
it was not we were not spared. Who was? We had parents who had to deal with brownout, Meralco,
Right.
etc. And here you are, 7 years old, wanting a new pencil box, and you don't understand that the no is not because they don't love you. It's just because
Yeah.
there's really some outside stress happening. Our parents really went
For
through that.
sure.
I really need to tell people who grew up during martial law that you're gonna have to really pause now and think of your parents growing up at that time, and if ever they have expressed or made you feel uncared for, abandoned, significant, I don't think so. Maybe some, but statistical norm. The parents who were handling a very rough, confusing, dark time, and
Right.
sorry, but can you just let that go? para, para for, there's no, may,
Pagbigyan niyo na sila.
by the way, by let go, I don't mean move on. By let go,
Yeah.
I take it again. Maybe vengeance is not required.
Hello.
Maybe
Oops.
energy will go. Maybe the energy can go somewhere else. Oh, am I lost? Sorry. Can you still
Medyo,
see me?
can you just repeat it? Kasi parang nawala.
I got choppy ba? Teka, I'm gonna detach from my other gadget kasi alam mo
Okay.
naman,
Or
in Taguig, which is in
nag
Braille,
or baka
umambot.
nag-echo.
Oh, what's that? I'm not anywhere. Anyway, I think I need to connect mental wellness of us, our age
Yeah.
and generation today, and how martial law really contributed to it. The whole military rule gave our parents really a scenario that was a very, very unfree in terms of many things, unless they were in a privileged space. Right? In which
Yes.
case, if you were in a privileged space, I really encourage you to not dwell on the guilt. Like, let's not be guilty. We were in privileged spaces. Recognize that we were luckier than majority. If you are in a privileged space and you are what's the word? You weren't as harmed as those who were disenfranchised during the Marcos era. You need to acknowledge that it is merely a given. We cannot dwell on guilt because that's very paralyzing. You cannot also gloat because, fuck you, why will you gloat? Right?
Right.
You do gloat, and when you do gloat, you'll be so guilty after anyway. So don't gloat. So how do we deal with it? Deal with your privilege as a given. It's just a given. There are still things we need to search for, like an algebra equation, but there are givens, and we were given that. So, given kasi as a word does not connote any negative, or it doesn't judge you. Doesn't judge you. Parang you can't beat yourself up because you were born here and there and under these parents and etc. Those are not things you chose. But as a grown up, the choices that you are starting to make and the sphere of influence you already have and the businesses you already have, that's yours na. And what you do with it really proceeds from there. And if you are like a little bit like me, that my entire life was a little confusing. The Philippine situation makes me cry more than a heartbreak. It's really strange. Mas naiiyak ako when it's the news than when it was a boy. It's really weird.
Oo.
Made me cry too, of course. But I realized as a grown up, when yung pag tumanda ka na kasi, you can look back and trace your patterns. Of
Yes.
course, I really exerted a lot of effort to trace my patterns. I am number 15, right? I realize my patterns are I have deep grief when it's country. So like even the Ampatuan massacre, I felt concrete, palpable grief. I couldn't understand. I was ping ponging between I'm not there, I don't know them, I don't feel anything. To I'm grieving, grieving, grieving. To I'm judging myself na teka lang, hindi mo naman kilala itong mga to. Ang arte mo naman,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then you judge yourself. You judge
Right.
yourself. What I advise when you have these things, when you read the news like on Kian or children who are picked up by the police in this drug war that is a little less rehabilitative than I would like it to be. When you hear the news and when you read the news, you're gonna have to check your pulse and say,
Check
okay,
your box.
yeah, I'm affected. This really makes me sad. And don't dismiss agad, what can I do? And then you carry on, or blind. No. And also don't go to the streets like in 2 minutes. Also don't. You really should sit with it and then say, okay, what's my sphere of influence? It's here, it's here, it's here. Maybe I need to say something. Maybe I need to stand up for it. Because when I post on Facebook, I'm really not talking to anyone, Mirza, except my nephews and nieces. And
Right, right.
if in the process some of you read it too, then well and good. But seriously, all my Facebook posts, in my mind, I'm just talking to my nephews and nieces because I need them to know that when a child is murdered, I'm bothered. It's my problem too. But do I paralyze myself for 3 weeks? Hopefully not. But find a way to say it. Is there a group that you have access to that you can actually support? Is there a rally happening and you want to include a warm body there to add space to the volume of what's being said? Go. If there's none, it's fine. But ang mahalaga yata is, you know why? Like, you know why? If you show up at a rally or if you don't show up at a rally, it's just important that you know why. You don't
Right.
just, yeah, I think the why is important now.
And what do
Yeah.
you want to say to those who say, ba't ka ba galit na galit? Inaano ka ba nila? Which has been said to me many times.
I know.
Ba't ka galit na galit? Inaano ka ba nila? And your advice or answer to that is what?
I get that a lot, by the way. I get that a lot, which is why it helps that I'm my political leaning is hopefully consistent on issues, not so much on people.
Right.
To give you an example, there are some issues that even a senator who's not my number one senator, like Senator Soto, for example, he's not my favorite senator, but when he passed the mental health law, I can laud it because it's a good
Right.
law. And so it's not a person that you're lauding, it's the issue. So to answer that question, I'm gonna have to say, I think there were other people who came before me that cared for certain issues, and I'm really benefiting from it. And I
Right.
don't know if it's okay to can I like really go deep, into connection
Of
here.
course.
Okay. In the 90s, there was this thing called the Beijing Women's Conference. Okay, you've probably read it, you've probably heard of it, and you probably don't know much about it, but that's fine. I didn't either. There was a Beijing Women's Conference, and in the Beijing Women's Conference, women gathered, etc. It's so funny, it's in Beijing, pa. We are a province of that now. Sort of. No, just the shore, just the shore beside the U.S. Embassy. Why did they put the sand beside the
I
U.S.?
know. Oh, I have an anecdote for that later.
So
But go ahead.
let me go ahead and do this first. The reason why I'm galit na galit, even wala naman, di ka naman inaano, right? Nung nag-Beijing Women's Conference in the 90s, women gathered and they said there are women who are oppressed in their own homes. Like for the first time, somebody articulated it, a collective, okay? And then they raised it higher on an international scale and said we have to make X number of countries sign that violence against women should be addressed as a state problem. Kasi dati when mag-asawa are fighting, they say leave them be,
Yeah.
mag-asawa yan.
Yeah.
Away
Domestic
mag-asawa
problem
yan.
lang.
That's not nothing to do with us. But because of the Beijing Women's Conference, ang nangyari, it elevated the violence in the home into the business of the state. Like even if nobody files a charge, if there is proof that a woman is charged, it can be people of the Philippines versus. It can be, all cases naman are people of the Philippines versus. But somebody can pick it up. And then organizations built around it, like Solgen, public attorney's office, etc. So what am I saying? These were women who were in their 40s and 30s, possibly 50s, in the 90s, who worried enough. Even if
For
they
the
were,
others.
yes, and they were in privileged positions. Are you kidding me? If you were part of that conference, you're possibly a PhD, you probably went to Oxford, because that's just how it works. I don't know how we could invite every people, to every conference, but sometimes merit is the basis, and if you're lucky, you get invited and you have a voice. But then these women, they realized they had a voice for every other woman that was gonna come post 1993. And they said it, and they placed it on the table and said, wait, hindi pwedeng, oh, don't bother them, away mag-asawa yan, that's not your business. Oh, don't interrupt, that's a household thing, that's a personal thing. No, when somebody is physically harmed, it's the business of the state to take care of them. And that is why meron akong pakialam right now, because I feel like I am very protected because women who came before me met up and said we must speak out. Even if it's just to document something, say it. Say it.
Right.
You know why? You cannot manage something if you can't even mention it. That's why
Right.
it's so what's the word? It's really difficult, painful, and traumatizing to even mention rape, sexual harassment, sexual molestation, especially if you were the one that survived it. It's really digging in deep. It's opening a wound for sure. But I think that's the beginning of how a society heals. When somebody can have a difficult conversation, it's really like pag mag-boyfriend. If, if you can handle a difficult conversation without it being a war, you're on your way somewhere.
Right.
Up
Right.
somewhere. You're on your way somewhere better. But when there's a difficult, awkward conversation, and it always ends up to become a fight, that needs to be worked on. And I think it's
Right.
the same between countries, and it's the same between people and government. It's the same between interagency. And I don't know. I think mental wellness is the biggest problem. I don't even
Right.
think I don't even think it's politics, Mirza, or economics. I really think the future generation is going to have to rely on their individual mental wellness to have a better
Right.
chance, a better stab at having really a better space for everyone else.
Right. Right. And this is what you're advocating now, like the mental health of the nation, right? Can you take us back to when this kind of foray started, like after rock
Yeah.
and
Yes, thank you.
was
I'm
it
glad you asked that.
after you got married?
No, well, no, what's the word? I'm
But
my
you did study to be an art therapist, right?
Yes, yes. Actually, I'm a licensed trauma therapist, trauma
Oh, okay.
recovery therapist, stress reduction therapist, and I'm also an adolescent therapist through creative arts. And I did study it. And my training was actually 9 years in maximum security prison. So whenever I have a new counselee and I'm intimidated, I always say, Jesus, I handled inmates, okay, so I think I can do
Right,
this.
right.
And then when I have imposter syndrome, when I'm like, kaya ko ba to? Kasi, I mean, am I faking this? I always really have to go back to glaring evidence that, yes, I took care of inmates and therefore I can do this. So, but do I doubt myself every now and then? Absolutely. Because I also have seasons where I get tisoed, and I also realize a lot of us, people our age, and perhaps even the next, a lot of our mental wellness really spills over to our political leanings. It also spills over to, and political leanings and political, what we watch, spills over to our personal space. It really does. And I don't mean that literally. Like, I have a half sister who's not of the same political spectrum as
Right,
me. And it's not always as literal as that. That's kind of easy to handle because the lines are so
right.
clear. It's really hard when the lines are vague, and
I'm sure.
I know where the ambiguity is and the microaggression, yung hirit dito, and then I don't even know why, and this is probably the most important sentence I'll say throughout this evening. I don't even know why we have feelings about politics. Did we forget that they're just there to give us services?
Right,
SSS, GSIS. Give me my road, give me my school, give me the bridge that will take me to the market if I'm a farmer. Give me agrarian reform that I can go to for loans if I want to build an agriculture business. They are there for services. They really have we why do we have feelings about that? I mean, it's really just an elaborate grand housekeeping. That's government. I don't know why we have feelings about it. Why do we look at them like they're our parents? And no, Jesus, no. Did we forget? You really base your reaction on government regarding your phil health. When you go to a hospital and you were giving your dues, can you claim your phil health? If it's yes, then that's a good government. We don't have to like them, love them, or call them dad. Jesus, come on. Stop. Stop. It's not theology. not theology, it's just politics. In fact, if you think about it, good roads, mine. Good bridges, mine. A good school, mine. Mine. A congressman not stealing from me, mine. That's mine.
Right. Right.
Even though I have to ask for it. And it's so frustrating in the Philippines na when they give us a good school and they give us a good bridge, we're so thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, shut what? No. I mean, thank you. Thank you. You didn't steal it. What? That's minimum requirement. So
Because it's a right, not a privilege.
recently, other than hopefully being constantly issue oriented, I can't help but spill over to the people because there's some people in government who are consistently on the wrong side of the issues that I'm for, and then it becomes a personality thing. But other than that, I try very hard to really appreciate legislators, even if they're not of the same political party. In fact, who are we kidding? There are no political parties in the Philippines. They're just they're just colors that you choose for your chaleco next election. Shut up. So don't give me this thing that you're offbeat and whatever your political party is. That we have to shape up on that, by the way. But that's another YouTube episode altogether. But for me, I really think stop. The big exercise I really want to give everyone, especially about martial law and this administration, the Duterte administration, I really want to give you this exercise. It's a merging of my mental wellness practice and my political analysis research career. Okay, you're gonna have to read the news, face the news, read the facts, sources you trust, if it's possible, and if there's no one you trust, read all, even the ones that are contradicting, and then you judge. But exercise that you do not have a reaction to the name. So
Right.
meaning, if it says ex-legislator passed the Kasambahay law,
Right.
right? There's such a thing. In the Kasambahay law says you have to take care of them, their health insurance. You can't demand them 24/7 and it's a great law. It's a fantastic law. I'm a fan of that law. And you know who authored it? Lito Lapid. Now, if
Ooh.
you hear Lito Lapid, the name, immediately some of your feelings change, okay? And
Right.
that's not fair. So I encourage everybody who is watching this, whether today in 2020 or 5 years from now on YouTube, you accidentally click this, I'm gonna have to ask you pa rin, read the news, watch the legislation that's pushed, watch the votes that's being pushed, the sides that's being offered, and the decisions made by budgets. Take out all the names and choose what you believe in and stay there. Because apparently, we're such a celebrity culture, or maybe it's a celebrity generation.
Correct.
And
We're
we are
celebrity starved.
and you know what, Mirza? We really are very forgiving of people we like. When we and who do we like? I don't know. People who just give us magaan yung vibes, ang gaan ng feeling ko with this person. I kind of like her. I like looking at her. Those are those are great for friends, by the way, and for people to
Yeah.
date or for your children to date. That's fine. That
We
instinct.
love comedians and
But
drunk uncles.
but nobody ever talks about the rapist cousin. Come on, they're in government.
Correct.
Pick it up. And I really think we also need to reassess. I need to reassess. I have very good friends in government. I have very, very good friends I grew up with at the Senate. And I need to always reanalyze that. Okay, it's on the basis of the law. And I can't let this pass just because he's my friend, etc. And I got accused several times of like, ikaw kung kaibigan mo, hindi mo tinitira. And I always say, kasi kung kaibigan ko, pwede kong kausap. I mean, tinatawagan ko siya. And ask them. Ask Sonny Angara. Ask Grace. I do call them straight and I complain. And I didn't need to tweet it. What for? I can go. My purpose is for the legislator to know what my side is and what my opinion is, not to have X number of followers know what my stand is and how rebellious I am. Come on. I mean, but sadly,
Maybe people are feeling unheard. That's why they think
oh,
when you
okay.
say, yeah, I do talk to them, and maybe people are feeling, bakit ganun? Bakit ganun pa rin, di ba? Maybe that's
Well,
what
I feel terribly unheard most of the time, considering that disenfranchised. I do get phone calls who mistake me for my half sister a lot. The other day, and I gotta put it on record, somebody called and said, "Hello, your name. I have been praying to God for a lot." By the way, this is not mocking religion. I'm just saying a story. God has been talking to me, and my face is like this, and your name came up. So I'm like, Jesus, shit, wait for a while. What how's this? And we need to get Our Lady of, I don't know, whatever. We need to get a message to President Duterte, and we know you're very close to him. So first of all, I'm already confused that she talks to God,
Right.
and I'm already. How do I say this? That I'm not the one in PCOO.
Correct.
So it's really interesting time actually. And I know that when I say interesting time, it comes from privilege, because in many circles, in many spaces, they don't even have the privilege to critique or just discuss, right? Well, there was a question. Di ba friend mo si Martin Andanar? Anyway, I
Yeah.
didn't see.
Sorry.
No,
Maybe continue with your story first.
oh yeah, okay. So I had to say, I started to get annoyed because she went on. I mean, and I just said, I'm trying very hard not to dismiss you because I feel your earnestness. She is earnest. But I need to tell you that I'm not the one from PCOO. It's really funny. But no, it's
Wrong
fine.
Badoy.
It's kind of, no, it's all right. And I don't know what to say. When topic goes towards my half sister, I really tread gently. I really have to tread gently. That's only because it's uh there's a lot in the middle. We share a lot of common people that we
Right.
both have. Other than that, what I don't spare, if it's okay to share, she taught me how to call out public officials. She taught me
Right.
that it's your voice, and if you see something that's irregular in terms of services not provided, you should call them out and etc. And don't fold, because I'm always the one folding. I always find another euphemize
Right.
things. I be very vague. I don't really go. Yeah, I'm not a carpet bomber in terms of a
Right.
political commentary. In fact, I've been accused of being a fence sitter, and I said, yeah, you're. I do fence sit. For a while, so I can think about it. But I'm a very passionate fence sitter. I'm just kidding. And then eventually, when I know which side I'm on, then I can speak out.
Right.
But right now, my half sister is a public official, so I figured I learned from her, and I think it's fair that I can call things out if I think there are things that are very wanting in terms of the
Right.
communication of the president, right? So yeah,
Right.
okay. I'm sure part of her is proud that I listened to her and I learned. you know,
Right.
I want to get that question because it was about Martin, who
Yes,
is.
yes. There you go.
Anong masasabi mo na parang dami niyang plano dati sa government? Ah, no, friend ko pa rin naman si Martin Andanar. John, I love the name John Lemon.
John
Myrza,
Lemon.
I think you also have some insight on this. When you have a really good friend or even a relative who is completely different from you in terms of political leaning, the question is how do you deal? Do you just
It's
avoid
very
them?
hard. My late best friend loved Imelda Marcos
Oh,
because he was awed by her glamour and he had pictures with her displayed all over his house. And so this was like a sore spot for us. And every time the topic would go there,
yeah, I can
we
imagine.
would decide not to talk about it. And well, he passed away, so
I know your best friend. Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Cousin of yeah.
But it's hard, and I know people who are married to each other and they're on opposite sides of
Yeah.
the
Well,
current coin. It's hard.
it is difficult. It's tricky, but it's not impossible because I really think it forces you to oh, put things in hierarchy. Like, okay, it's a pie chart. Really, it's a pie chart. How many percent of this is this, and how many percent of this is that? And if it's a passing grade, carry on. Pero kung 20% lang, okay, bumagsak na yon. Parang I love metrics. It's in my head all the time. I measure everything with numbers, and so I think it's tricky, but it's not impossible to carry on with it. I still consider Martin Andanar my friend. I imagine I am still his. I don't agree with very many things, of course. And I have tagged him several times when I post, like, Mark, especially early part of the administration. I said, Martin, you're the communications secretary, and you shouldn't let the president ramble this way. And I was saying that as a communications practitioner as well, that
Right.
you don't let your principal ramble on like an like a uh, I have many
And
words. I have many words, but ramble.
self-destruct.
And you can't leave him be. And I always compare it to the way I love and care for my mother, who has Alzheimer's now. We had must have been 4 years ago where we stopped making her confirm appointments because
Okay.
she would have lucid moments, which is great, and she's really funny and eloquent. But there will really be parts where the Alzheimer's will kick in, and it's hard for her to grasp complete even a sentence, and then it runs really smoothly, and then she repeats sentences like 7 8 times, and we don't want her exposed to her friends who adore her and love her and really enjoy her wit. I don't want them to see her that way. One,
That,
they will be disturbed, I think, for what unsettled. It's very unsettling. Two, I also think my mother would like to keep her poise. So kami na yung nag-take charge, and then you are the parent of your mother. We became parents of our mom now and say, "Ma, don't na go." It's the same way when she turned 70, like, "Ma, don't na drive." You keep you in there like children. Parents are like children. Eventually, you hold the car keys. You don't give her license para she doesn't drive, etc. I think it's the same with this president, with President Duterte. Obviously, he himself says he's on medication, and a lot of medication will really fog you up. It will really fog you up. I think President Marcos was the same for a stretch, but then at the time, the media during the Marcos era,
they had
um,
more control.
was not, it was not 24/7. It was
No.
and so it was very easy to stage. There was a stage and a backstage, and I think
Yes.
with this government, this administration, and this is not just here, globally, every leadership, every administration, whether it's in a company, a school, a country, a union, an NGO, anything, we are really 24/7 being watched.
We're under the microscope.
Yes,
So
yes, and there's a million new sets of eyes watching you. Someone can YouTube you while you're rude to a waiter, and it's true. Now, is this
right.
good or I don't know if it's good or bad. I just know it is. That's just how
Well,
it is.
hopefully for the future, it will be hard to do historical revisionism when there is microscopic
Yeah.
documentation, right? And speaking of which, there's an ongoing online conference called
Yes.
Balik Kasaysayan. Tama ba?
Mm-hmm.
On historical revisionism. And it's like a week-long online conference with talks galore. And I didn't realize the extent of wow. And then you and Lourdes are on September 25 summarizing it and giving
We
the
wrap everything.
takeaways. What can you say about this historical revisionism that's going on? Lourdes mentioned to me na, nako, malaki ang budget dyan. Totoo ba yun?
Revising. I think so. How do I say this? Let me go back. Let me talk about the word kasaysayan first.
Right, right,
Yung root word ay saysay, which is
right.
meaning, essence, and kasaysayan is history. So kung meron kang kasaysay, pareho kayong meaning. If you were
Right.
childhood friends, like I have a lot of childhood friends. I grew up in a neighborhood na parang kulto. Like to this day, still friends, and we still go to the same place. We still drink in the same way. We're still on a Viber thread, and these are my neighbors. Yung Magallanes, parang kulto yan eh. Oo, di ba? Kami pa rin yun. Nila Rem, Zamora, nila Franz. Ganyan. We're still friends to this day. And I love the word because I can actually say, yun mga childhood friends ko, sila ay aking mga kasaysay. We have the same meaning. We share the
Okay.
same. And then eventually, when you add "an," which is the suffix, kasaysayan, it becomes history. And then we immediately switch to the Western definition of history, which is a chronological documentation of events and large decisions that lead to different situations, etc. But if you look at the root word, wow, the root word comes from meaning. It comes from essence. It comes from shared meaning, kasaysay. Right? Ito ang ating
Correct.
kasaysayan. And there is no space for untruth in that. But it's happening. It's happening.
Right.
And ang weird ba, Myrza, kasi lahat ng transmission of lies and truth, let's just do it that way, all the transmission of lies and truth under the umbrella information is really audio and visual. So it's really on film, on screen caps, on etc. The way we embrace Anne Frank's diary to understand the Holocaust, it's a handwritten account of a 15-year-old hiding in the roof,
Right.
from Nazis, and we embrace that. But the future, so lucky. They are so lucky that we are tweeting, we are posting, we are blogging, we're talking to each other, we're saving conversations like this on bandwidth on YouTube, so that there's a lot more texture for them to hold on to and conclude what their future will look like and what their present is about, because it's gonna come from here. And the nightmare, I know, the nightmare is that it history is repeating, and we are responding the same way. That would be a
Right.
nightmare. So
Right.
I have to imagine that, given the new resources that we have compared to martial law, because if you were with us from the start, as I imagine we're wrapping up, if you were with us at the start of this conversation, Mirza said she had to read the Malaya newspaper in school, in the
Yeah.
university, and you cannot be caught with it in your bag, because
No. No.
it's rebellious material. What do you call it? Subversive material. Uh,
Right.
Mirza, I need to share something really crucial.
Okay, go.
When I was a child, my older siblings, were all in UP Diliman. We all went to UP Diliman, at least my mother's children. We all went, one to 10. I remember photocopied pieces of paper in my brother's Cattleya notebook, okay ba? Sobrang 70s. And
Play.
yeah, when that he would bring home in his bang bang jeans and faded memory, in his ace bag.
And
I
famulary. Earth
Oo,
shoes.
ay, earth shoes. Oh, buhay nga yan ulit ngayon. If you're reading, imagine this. I'm 9 years old. There is a bond paper of a photocopied newspaper article from the Baltimore Sun or the New York Times or Washington Post, ganyan. Naka-Xerox, right? And you're reading it. And then my brother will say, after you read it, fold it again and put it back. Like, you can't show it, it can't be found on you,
Right.
on your person. And you
Right.
know what
Right.
they were articles from foreign newspapers about the properties of the Marcoses in San Francisco, the Gucci
Oh my
building.
gosh. What year was this? 90s na ba yan?
No, 80s.
Your brother was in UP in the 80s and you were
Yeah, I was a
much
child.
younger. Okay, okay, okay.
Much younger. I was much
Right,
younger.
right.
Kakalift lang ng martial law, kakalabas lang ng foreign press on the properties they were having, and all the
Right.
jokes of Apo Hiking Society, like, other than hidden wealth, there's hidden health, because
Oh, okay.
he also concealed
Right. The lupus.
his lupus, and they would even show old footage of him,
Yeah,
1980.
water skiing in Cancun.
Yes, and there's also one, I distinctly remember this. I was 11. They showed footage of President Marcos playing golf. Sabi nila kaninang umaga yon, kasi to show that he's very healthy, but the fashion was from the 70s. It's
Oh
really
my. This is
and
before Photoshop. So that's a lot of darkroom magic.
I know, and that was a Ronnie Nathaniel's initiative. Really,
Oh yes.
I know, I
Right.
remember all these things. It's crazy. I really, and then so if fold namin yung photocopied articles, and yung articles na to, it covers ano yung buildings na pagmamay-ari ni Imelda sa New York, ano ang buildings na pagmamay-ari nila sa San Francisco, kung magkano yung resibo na napapublish
Right.
resibo, yung resibo ng shinaping niya sa Nordstrom's, etc., ano yung ginastos nila. And I distinctly remember one photocopy of a Manila Intercontinental. Wala na nga Intercon ngayon, parking lot na lang. Or Glorieta 5 yata siya ngayon. Anyway,
Yes, yes.
there was a receipt that a waiter from Intercon kept and leaked to We Forum. And it was their breakfast. Okay? And it
Oh my.
continental breakfast, arroz caldo, jeepney coffee shop, and I had bottled water. Kaya in the 70s, walang bottled water. Ngayon lang naman
Right,
naging,
right.
and I was like, wow, they paid 7 pesos for water, and
The
it was
height of luxury.
super distinctly remember that na parang bottled water. This is, you know what? Bottled water was the strangest, most extravagant thing for me because I drank
Right,
from people. We had a pond
right,
in our barangay,
right.
and we drank from the faucet, okay, and we lived through it. It's fine. I mean, I'm still alive. So I remember that. What is my point? My point is we needed relatives from other countries to send us photocopies of articles from other newspapers just to say what's going on in our country with our taxes. And these are sent through letters, balikbayan boxes. And what do? We photocopy it and we spread it around people who we know are of the same political leaning, because
That can be trusted.
if my father ever got caught photocopying these articles and I'm
Right,
distributing to classmates, we could go to jail, like automatically. A
right.
lot of the anti-terror bill now. So I don't even
Exactly.
I don't understand how we got back here. Mirza, how did we get back here?
I don't know. That's why I said it's a bizarro world slash Handmaid's Tale slash.
It's like fashion, like, it does its rounds and it comes back in a different form because, fashion has done that. It has taught us
Truly
that. But
cyclical and repeating itself. And how come we're not learning? Well, how come we don't know any better?
I,
Because
I have a theory because we're a young nation. Okay, we're a very young nation. Please remember the Constitution of the United States is 1776. Ours is barely what we tried in 71, and that became military rule, so let's junk that one. We tried in 87, and then there's a lot of things to revise from that one as well. Even our late friend Carlos Eldran suffered from the constitution that was not revised, with a law that was not repealed from the early
right,
20s,
right,
offending religious feelings. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is why legislation is very important. And for me, you're gonna have to really pay attention to your lawmaker. Really
right,
or really make them hear you, because law. I have to say this, law is an exercise in possibility. You cannot write a law na i-implement bukas. Kasi ibig sabihin hindi siya masyadong ambitious. Okay?
right,
When when you pass a law and there will be implementing rules and regulations, it will probably 5 to 7 to 8 years before it's fully operational, optimized, or etc. And there's a budget that's involved in it. But you also need to know that if you author a law and say, ay, wala tayong pera for that, ay, hindi ka na maggagawa ng law. So law, it really takes time. I know it takes time, and democracy is such, but it will take a lot of time to build things. And you know that excellent things are rarely instant. I mean, we know this. I grew up thinking that ramen was a very hard cardboard thing that you just melt and there's a tiny support with all the flavor. But apparently, when you realize what ramen is, it takes time. Some are boiled for 12 hours, and the world of difference from the ramen that I thought ramen was and the ramen. Ganyan din sa laws. Be patient with it. But while we're being patient with it, always know that when a legislator authors a law, that's a dream, that's a possibility, that is where we want to go. The Beijing conference, when did we really start talking about sexual harassment? So 5, 10 years ago, yung Me Too. When was Beijing conference? 1993 or 92? I don't know. Ang tagal. So there is that. So in the meantime, what do? We remember, we recall, we have conversations on it every year. Mark it. I never say celebrate the anniversary of martial law. I always use the word mark. Let's mark this.
Mark.
Let's not let it be an ordinary day.
Market.
Oh, I
Mark the
know.
wood.
Kalamansi sa sugat talaga. But
Well, how do you distinguish between marking and like maglaslas?
oh,
Do you ever reach that point of like mental laslas? Na,
uh,
ano ba?
last week, my friend who publishes Adarna books, Sila, the Almarias Annie, said, I never thought of leaving the Philippines. I think she said something like that. And I really admire her. I say, I do every other week, but I don't. But I don't do it. I just allow myself to think it, but then I don't do it. It's a lot like when you don't like a person that you can't get rid of, like, like if you're related to them, like every
Right,
other week you want to strangle them, but you don't strangle them. You just allow
right.
yourself thought. You allow yourself the the absurd thought 3 minutes, and on the fourth minute you say, "Okay, I guess I can't do that." Because an absurd thought, even a violent thought,
She can
is
live.
it's statistically normal because naisip mo siya, hindi mo lang siya ginawa. If you are in a non-statistically normal range of mental wellness, you'll just do it. You won't even think it. You'll just do it, right? So it's very healthy to actually think of these things like, oh, gusto ko talaga sakalin to, kakainis, ganyan. That's healthy. Stay in that thought and recognize na, oh, at least it
Right,
fleshed itself in a thought, and I recognize it's absurd, therefore I shall not do it, right? So, but allow your
right,
thoughts. And this is why you have friends. So you can
right.
express to your friends who you want to strangle on a daily basis. But do you strangle them? Do you strangle them? No, I never advise. Is that?
Right,
Yeah,
steady lang, steady lang. And speaking of steady lang, Project Steady,
I
how
know.
can keeping ourselves mentally steady help save the country eventually? Because maybe self-awareness is the ultimate key. Is it?
It's always the goal, really. Because if you don't know yourself very well, you
Ooh,
will accept you will accept appointments that are beyond your capacity or understanding. And if a large decision making position is given you and you don't have the capacity for it, grabe yung effect, right? So if you know yourself, you know which tasks you are capable of. You know now, you know when you're just being self-deprecating, and you know when say, okay, ito kaya ko to, ito hindi, right? And I think a lot of our leaders might want to self-reflect soon, because so much is at stake when they make decisions. And it's not just about having this particular business card and this particular benefit to travel and to have a staff and etc. That's a game. That's a game. Do you not understand? When you actually say yes to an appointment, there are thousands, possibly tens of thousands of farmers that will be affected if you're not trained for that, if you make the wrong decision, if you steal, by the way, clearly, so much is that at stake. And for me, when I started I'm not totally I'm not totally steady. Of course, I have days where I swing, but
right,
I
right.
my pendulum swing is a lot smaller now than before. It used to be like, "Rah." Now it's like, that's why I think Project Steady as a concept wants to just say mental wellness is not you cartwheeling with joy every day. That's different. I don't know what you need for that, but mental wellness is you are steady enough to take on the wave, drown for a bit,
Right.
go ahon again and talk again. Kasi, to be very clear, if you have a favorite, we can end with this if we're ending soon. How much time do we
No,
have?
go on, go on, go on. No,
Okay,
no, no. Go
okay.
ahead.
If you have a favorite ball pen, Mirza, and you are going to have an exam and you didn't bring your favorite ball pen, you can say, "Fuck, shit, I didn't bring my ball pen." Um, and then your classmate lends you a ball pen and you use it begrudgingly, but you take the test anyway. That's mental wellness. Okay, I'm going to tell you what mental not wellness is. Mental instability is if you say, I don't have a ball pen, teacher, stop the test, wait for me, I'll get it. Or you say, nobody takes the test because I don't have my ball pen. That's not steady.
Wala akong blue book.
You mental project steady is about there will be situations that are not ideal. Your best ball pen will not be there, but you can take the test anyway. With whatever pencil is there, you can say thank you to your seatmate na pinahiram ka ng ball pen and go. Pagbuang, you say, nobody can take the test for I cannot take the test. Nobody, or teacher, stop, wait for me, I'll come back. Come on, that's narcissism, that's self-indulgent, that's not steady, okay? I heard that the president used to smoke. And then Davao is like number one city of you cannot smoke. You're not allowed to smoke anywhere in Davao except for that one tile in Marco Polo Hotel, which is closing. So I know this. I know where you can smoke in Davao. But just and I realized, oh, this is a mayor who said I can no longer smoke, so no one can smoke. Just to be very clear, smoking is a nasty habit. Don't start it anymore. Of course, take care of your lungs. But I also think many things under that. We have what you call inclinations and what's the word nga? Reaction to compulsion because of what our traumas are, so that's fine, that's forgivable. But if you're watching, I hope you're not smoking anymore because it's a waste of money and a waste of lung space. But if it's your thing, no problem, no judging. So ang weird, no? Kasi noon, yung mga nanay natin, they just smoked even they're pregnant. It's amazing.
Right. And on planes.
And yeah, I think I don't know if my mother smoked. I think she did. But they didn't know. They said they didn't know any better. So now we do. Now we do. And imagine that was also an institutional deceit, right? They already knew
Right.
that smoking was hazardous to health.
Global.
But yes, that's institutional deceit. And parang okay rin to analyze right now what the institutional deceits are. And
Right.
yeah, it's very healthy. I really need you to know that. I don't know what your opinion is of the younger generation of the Marcoses. I heard some of them are really good in terms of like the governor in Ilocos. The guy married Cara Manglapus. I forget his name. He's the son of Aimee, I think, and maybe Zandro, maybe etc. I know they're a different generation. I'm not promoting that you hate them or ostracize. Even Amy. Amy's a friend. But I would like to emphasize that there are certain absolute truths that happened caused by decision making of the family patriarch, who was also somebody who stole freedom from us, starting with actually electing a leader.
Right.
He stayed too long. He stayed longer than he should have, and that constitutionally allowed. And what did he do? He changed the constitution. He dismissed the
Right.
constitutional convention and overstayed. Right? Ang
Right.
isa pa, hindi yan maliit na bagay, guys. Hindi yan maliit na bagay because a democracy's pillar is it says you have the right to choose your leader because your leader will decide what to do with your money. And I go back to why do we have so much feelings? Why do we have so much emotion? We're so passionate about it like it's a faith leaning. It's politics, it's government. And government is just elaborate, large scale housekeeping.
Right.
They owe us services, health insurance, health,
Right.
schools. Why? Because we all donate to the pot called taxes, and that's what they're
Correct.
paid. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess it's always a need for a people to have a poetic hero and to really be
Right. Or in the words of Jessica Zaffro, we have a daddy complex when maybe we should have a mommy complex because the mommy does traditionally the housekeeping, and you can see by the COVID, the
maybe.
global success rate for countries run by female leaders. Sorry to be sexist, but
No, Myrza, we can't. We really can't dismiss the concept connection of all these things, no? Kasi
right.
we also are a generation where we really forgave errant fathers who were not present,
Yes,
fathers
correct.
who were not eloquent when it comes to expressing emotions, fathers
Right.
whose only language would be discipline in some maybe corporal form.
Right.
And we adore them because
Yes.
it's just so much nicer when you love your dad. Every daughter would love your dad.
And not just that, the wives were complicit in raising a whole new generation of men exactly like their husbands.
Oh, yes.
And I always tell my friends with sons, the power to change the new generation of men lies in your hands.
People with
Diba?
sons, no? People with sons, yeah. I
Right,
was
right.
You don't have children either. I don't have children either. I think part of that
No.
is the the deep fear of mine to not not. This
Well,
is
you were
very
number 15 in a family of 15, so
number 15, and I
something there.
also, yeah, the pressure to have another generation by me was absolutely gone by the seventh child. In
But
fact,
you have impacted change on so many generations younger than you with your work, which is
wow,
so
I don't know.
laudable.
I know. I hope so. I mean, I hope so because I work very hard for that. It's not. I don't. I won't even do. I won't even do the modest card here. Like no naman. No, I'm gonna say shit. I hope so because I devoted
For sure.
decade and a half of my. I think
And
my
so,
best
what is Rock Ed
focus on now.
currently involved with? Yeah, especially with youth oriented endeavors.
I think well, the nature of the first decade of rock ed cannot be as intense anymore. We cannot. First of all, it's no longer safe to hold large concerts outside. Look at
Correct.
look at our streets. Look at our police. I
Right,
can't.
right, right.
Can you imagine
Wala.
for 10 years we held human rights concerts in the MRT stations? Can you imagine
Right.
how safe that is now? I can't
No.
do it anymore.
Sa ano
So
lang meron, Dolomite viewing, pwedeng mag
I don't know
siksikan.
what was that about.
I
I don't
know,
know.
right? But go ahead, go ahead. Rock Ed.
Is that like foundation over psoriasis? You know, is that the
I
same
don't
concept
know.
when you put like MAC thick Studio Fix foundation over psoriasis? Um,
Right.
we are certain.
But
Yeah, well, RockEd as a legal entity certainly developed certain expertises. They have an expertise, and it's really disaster response, first response. Many reasons because we have several groups in provinces, and so none of us really need to fly. We just need to call and activate the people who are there from that province. That's really a reward of the first 10 years where we went around the Philippines meeting student councils, student leaders at that time from 2005 to 2015. And now they are industry leaders. A lot of them already own their own businesses, are vice presidents of BPOs, etc. And
wow.
really they grew up. We all grew up. I keep telling Lord, look, it's time for Rocket to grow up. And in growing up, I realized we did not evolve nor mature to become a party list. Where we're headed because I value law a lot and I value consulting the citizenry a lot for laws. I thought we were going to be a party list. I really did. We didn't turn out that way. We have our own, like Lourdes in media. I'm here. Some of us are doctors. A lot of, there's dentists, etc. And some are in government. And I realized with all learning about politics and watching it up close for so long and translating um, the more complex issues into the language of the teenager, at least I hope that that's what I was doing, what we were doing, I realized mental wellness is the bottom line that ties everything up. If a mentally well, no, not well, if a mentally steady
Right.
Filipino
And aware.
aware, yeah,
Right.
you don't overlap traumas into decision making. What do
Right.
I what do I mean? Many of us make decisions based on what we fear. Like I'm afraid
Right.
of this, so I'll go there.
Right. I'm
I'm afraid
afraid of drug
I'm afraid
addict.
of that, so I'll go there. I'm afraid of this, I'll go there. It's never this is ideal. Let's go there. Right? It's rarely that. Meaning, in the board of trustees of our brains, the trauma moments really hold majority seats. So they make the
Right.
decisions for us. And fear, to put it in a political parallelism, or like to put it in a political analogy, we said presidents should only have one term. We did that in the Constitution. Why? We were reacting from a trauma that happened in March
Right.
because a president overstayed, changed the charter changed so that he can keep on and stay, came up with some imaginary violence, but some of them were real. But the bombing of Juan Ponce Enriquez's car along Green Hills was what triggered the call, declaring of martial law, they said, "See, we are in such peril. The the defense minister's car was bombed, but it was a setup." Even Juan Ponce Enrile himself admitted it. So it can be so manipulated, especially with all the resources and the speed by which our communication is happening now. It can really be manipulated to serve someone who can overstay.
So
But
obviously, other people are learning from history in a devious way.
well, yeah, that's another
Silang
way.
natututo.
But that's another way to learn too, right? You see
Right,
the
right,
mistakes.
right,
So what I
right.
guess my point is, in our constitution in 87, it says a president can only have one term, and I think that is a law that's responding from a trauma because somebody overstayed. It was not a law uh, built on an ideal, which is a two-term president, because it will assure you a first term of of non-nigas ningas kogon, because they would want to continue, and there's continuity and etc. Like, you know what? We never vote to continue. You notice that? We always vote to change.
Right,
Why is that? When we know it
right,
takes more than 6 years to build an
right,
institution and to continue programs, but whenever we go to the polling place, we always want to leave, the precinct saying, "Ah, I feel the wind of change."
right,
We never go there and vote and say, "Carry on." Okay,
right.
continue. When we know the value of continuity, we know the value of continuing program. So I don't know. Can I be like really brave right now and dream? I have this really big dream. Can I just say it? If there's
Yeah,
any, you can do whatever you want presently. Sure, continue this. But can we at least make the Department of Education and the Department of Health a non-appointed position that can
correct.
go through three presidents at least, just to just
Right,
what's the word, samahan ng isang kindergarten hanggang mag-college siya. Isa yung president. 12 years lang yun, guys, di ba? Or
right,
14 years lang yun. Kaya yun. To see through a continuity. And health and education don't vary just because
right,
the president change. It changes by trend, I get it. But health and
right,
education is such a steady cyclical need. You need an expert there who is not worried if the appointment will be taken away from her or him or
right,
not.
right,
And you also don't need someone taking care of our health situation and our education situation and worried about, will I be appointed again? Will this
right,
please the president? No. You know what? When you make decisions for education and health, irrelevant who the president is.
right,
Every person there is the citizen who will need PhilHealth, who will need uh, a teacher, bubong, a school, notebook, etc. Kahit yung dalawang commission, kahit yung dalawang ministries na yun lang, Marcos ministry, yung dalawang departments na yun lang. Everything else, sure, I'll take it, because I understand that the president has to set his administration's direction, and therefore he needs to appoint ABC because he has goals, and this is my administration and this is the direction. That's why there's a SONA every year. It's a State of a Nation address. That's a SONA, by the way, is where the president says, "This is my plan. Legislators, you should make this the priority." And I don't know, it becomes a rant fest every year. I don't know what happens, but this is State of the Nation. So I'm thinking, kahit education and health na lang, pwedeng let's keep it separate from politics, really. Like, no appointment, get the best person for the job.
yes. The best is the key.
Make them continue on.
Qualified.
Make them continue on, right? From it does irrelevant yung president from here to there. Parang si Alan Greenspan, sa Amerika. Siya yung ilang presidente ang dumaan sa kanya, pero dahil treasury yung inaasikaso niya, parang walang pakialam sa inyo, aasikasuhin ko yung economy, parang ganun. And learn.
Right,
I guess we need to learn. Grabe,
right.
I'm such a baby of martial, and so are you. Na parang we're married to someone who's not nice, and then we always
No,
want
we're,
to.
we're like an abused wife with Stockholm syndrome, and we keep like hitting ourselves in the head, but not leaving. But hopefully with their mental steadiness efforts,
Yeah,
they're
bakit
able-
I don't know. Because leaving is one solution, of course, in any bad marriage. That's one. That's an option. But staying and protecting yourself is another option. The large ambition is rehabilitation of your partner, and
well,
that's the large
we're
goal. Which
choosing a better partner when the time comes to choose.
yes, that's one. Yes, absolutely. And never base it on just one date, or like he says, I'll jet ski and like, okay, so I'll vote you.
I
What?
saw a meme that said, shared trauma is not love. O,
Not
diba?
love. No.
Because
However,
I'm sure,
shared trauma is kasaysay though. It's kasaysayan.
true.
It isn't love, correct. It's not love. It's just a common space where you can actually relate with each other. The conversation will happen, and the other person will say, I get you. And gosh, that's so valuable when someone says, oh, yeah, I understand. Or when you say something, Mirza, and I say, oh gosh, I completely get that. Wow,
Right.
there's such a relief. So yeah, we all share trauma. And it can also go back all the way to even American occupation, the Spanish. It can all go back to,
Right.
but that's not a waste of time. It's not a waste of time to kalkal everything. So yes, we have
Right.
time.
In fact,
Pandemic.
do you
Yes,
advise all of us to use this pandemic time to calcal everything in order to get to know
I
ourselves and our country better?
like in renovation, the hardest to renovate is your floor. Because
Foundation.
you're gonna need to have no people walking in and out, and you're gonna have to have all the furniture out, and then you change your flooring, right? But when you have the chance to change your flooring, it changes everything. If you put a beautiful tile set on your pag, grabe, iba. Kahit pareho yung furniture mo, iba na yung itsura ng buong. Now we have time. We have time to
Right.
actually change the flooring of our mental wellness, of our steadiness.
Right.
You get to know yourself and geek out. We always geek out on Star Wars. We know everything about the Godfather. I know everything about the Celtics, whatever. But we really have to have the same geekiness and
Right.
enthusiasm in studying our childhood. Really,
Right.
your
Right.
childhood. What was going on? What hurt you? Was a tiny comment still festering in you? Did someone say you don't know how to dance? That's why you're not dancing. Did someone make a comment that you're not
Or did
much?
they laugh at your family name because it's Badoy?
Oh my gosh!
Na
Thank you for
research ko yan.
Thank you for bringing that up. Can you imagine? Like I absolutely resolved it. I joined the varsity, so my last
I'm
name was
glad.
like, kaya di ba? Ako naman pinakamagaling. Hindi. Actually, hindi ako pinakamagaling. I have a teammate named Mia, and she bested me in volleyball for sure. But I was her
But
back.
you vow to have your name out there.
I
So, diba? You
mean,
owned it.
it's really difficult when you're a kid. It's really difficult when you're like a child. Especially in my house, Mirza. I grew up with
Sure.
eight people whose last name is Sacro and one brother. And
Oh,
yeah, iba yung last name namin. And syempre, mas maganda yung last name nila. Yes. Parang can I just be a Sacro? And I have a brother who always says, don't read the news about about half sister, and my older brother will say, you're a Sacro, you're ours, ganyan. But that's not my dad. That's my mom's first husband, who died in 1967. And I really grew up with the shadow of the both dead parents. And I did grow up in a home with a piano that had three wedding pictures. So
wow.
I really had a lot to unpack.
So
Can you imagine?
interesting.
It's so interesting. Well, but many of us have childhood pain, and a lot of
Right, right.
like the Philippines, like the Philippines.
Yeah, so
Um,
many parallels.
yeah, and we also don't need to make it re-hurt us. Parang ang nangyayari if you don't process it, it continues to hurt you. And parang
Right,
nangyari noong 1978. So, but do face it and do narrate it. It's really like a wake. Like,
right.
ulit-ulit. How did she die? Oh, she fell sa stairs. How did she die? She fell sa stairs. Like, 100 times with kung gaano kadami yung guest, ganun kadami. By the 8 of your friend, you're numb na. So,
Right.
then you have energy for action. And then you have energy for action to go home, shower, pick a rest. You have mental bandwidth not to choose what will I wear at the funeral.
Right.
So while you're grieving, wala. But so now I think I feel it. If there's anger, feel it. If there's a recall of the anger every year, September 21, which for me is that. In fact, I told my ninang kanina, para akong Santa Claus ng September 21.
Parang hindi kasi Marichan ka off,
Invited everywhere pag martial law. I know. And then I realized, oh, that's right, because we are that age that can still narrate with vigor.
Right.
Yeah, in
Right.
a just manner, because we were there and we're
And we
still.
shouldn't stop because it might be forgotten. Hashtag never forget.
So I also think, and I might like to end with, if we're gonna end, I'm gonna end with this. I don't think we should force the younger generation to completely understand the texture, but it's very important for the next generation to know actual numbers of who
Yes.
disappeared, actual living people who went through real torture because they
Right.
opposed that president. I also need you to realize, with no feelings, you don't have to like or hate them, but realize that they have billions that are supposed to be for the services of our country. They have homes in wherever, everywhere. If you look at the listing of Marcos properties, and a lot of them say, that's really our money. No, that can't be. That can't be, even just by mere simple mathematics. But then there's also courts that have affirmed and have convicted them of large scale plunder. And there are real properties that are under their name and that they didn't own prior to being in power. And there's also, uh, these are truths, guys. And it's not because you like or don't like Bongbong Marcos. It has nothing to do with love or if you like them. It's just the fact that there's an X billion pesos that went to them that could have gone to hospitals. And
Right.
that's not two separate things. They are so close. You are working very hard so that if ever any of you get sick, you have insurance. Why? Because the PhilHealth is so funky and it's gone awry. And a part of it is because we didn't have a foundation in the 70s to build a Philippine health insurance. And while that was happening, one family was amassing wealth, property all over the world. That's not far. That's directly connected. And there's a reason why you're working very hard so that your basic needs are met. And if your parents ever, knock on wood, get sick, you can afford to send them to a good hospital. Do you know that part of that is state responsibility? Do you know that part of that is supposed to be your taxes? If you work in a BPO, 36% goes to the government. If your salary is, let's say, 50,000 a month, you know that it's not 50,000 a month. You feel something else. It gets you like what, 38 or whatever, however, how much. And you see where it all goes. Can you go to a hospital with PhilHealth that will take care of you after you've donated all that? No, guys, this has something to do with you. It's not about if you love Imelda or not, or if Bongbong's cool or not, or Xandros really chill or not, if you like Sarah or not. No, this is about your PhilHealth. Let's just stay there. That indicator means changes have to happen. And you know what kind of change we want to see? That none of us should be worried if any of us get sick. None of us should have to worry if we have children because they can go to a good school near our house, because that's a public school system. That's a goal. You know that if a public school system is good, you can send your children to school where they can just walk, and that will cut at least 32%, give or take, traffic. And that will also cut even neglect, because you can just walk home and your teachers know because it's in the neighborhood. That's a system. That's a public school system. If you ask me, that's the first thing I will invest in. Seriously, public schools have to be good. So you don't have a child in Alabang going to Ateneo in Katipunan,
Right.
an SUV, and he's this tiny, and all of them are under SUVs, and that's traffic, and it cuts people. And then MRT, it's really. So what's my point? My point is everything is connected. And it doesn't even rely on your emotions. It's numbers, it's the micro, it's the ecosystem that's been built, and we are not benefiting from services that we are owed no, not owed, benefits that are ours. We're not benefiting from them because a family stole from a foundation, and then habits were formed, and etc. Even the way our voting formed. So whatever you do right now, your personal history and your personal decision is actually Philippine history. Whatever you
Right.
decide, your personal history is Philippine history. You are not the picture of the Philippines. You are the Philippines. So make this decision in the coming elections. Choose the leader, etc. Recall, remember, don't forget. And it's not even, again, I keep saying, it's not even if you love or hate the Marcoses. That's irrelevant now. Right now, I can't do anything about that. What I can do is to tell you that a lot of our services are non-existent because they stole. And that's real. It's not even, I'm not even coming up with this. It's true. We can trace it. Papers have been written about it. Articles have come out. Convictions have been made by courts. No, I'm not making this up. It's not even fantasy. I wish I was making it up, but I'm not. I'm not. It's true. And it's very, very unjust. It's very,
Right.
very unjust.
And know about all of this before history revisionism succeeds. Hopefully, it does not succeed. And please
Myrza.
join the discussion in Balik Kasaysayan and catch
Yeah,
Gang and Lured on September 25, 5 p.m.
Mirza,
Right?
I
Yes.
forgot. I'm
Oh,
sure people will be offended that I didn't even bring it up.
oh,
Were there good things during the Marcos administration? Of course. Philippine Heart Center, Philippine Lung Center, name it. Am I grateful? Absolutely, especially for CCP, by the way. Yeah, cultural, they're good stuff. Yeah, yeah, of course. But that's a typical narcissist relationship. There's a love bomb when you feel completely loved, but then actually ninanakawan ka every now and then. Those are indicators. Am I grateful? Yes. Even for Metropop, I'm very grateful. Even for the film Mowal Fund and things that have created great work for us. The Cultural Center of the Philippines, without a doubt. PICC, I'm so proud. Yes, and thank you. But you know what? All those great stuff, they owe us. That's ours. Philippine Heart Center is not Marcos's gift to the Philippines. It's the Philippines tax money or the aid or the people who were working and paying taxes at that time. Marcos did not gift us with PICC or NKTI or National Heart Center, Children's Center. Oh, without that, without Imelda, there's no CCP. Oh, come, no, no. They just decided on that, but that's also our resources, and they owe us that. I mean, that's ours. That's ours. It's not the Marcoses. So don't ever think that National Philippine Heart Center, NKTI, CCP, PICC, Folk Arts Theater, whatever, don't ever credit that to the Marcoses. That's tax money. That's what they signed up for. That's their job. That's minimum requirement. So thank you for making that decision. Proceed. But by the way, you still owe us ABC, and you have this building in San Francisco. How'd you get that? Diba? Yeah. The questions have to be re-asked. Conversations have to happen again. If you're tired, good. Good. If you're sawang-sawa with this topic, if gas-gas na siya sa'yo, good. Then maybe it's time to actually stop talking about it and get involved in some way that this revisionism doesn't happen. Right? I'm glad you're tired of this topic. Good. Nakasawa rin pag-usapan na. It's like a breakup na paulit-ulit. Like parang,
correct.
okay, nakwento mo na yung kahapon, but I'm not tired because we have to hear it still. Because it's
Right.
still. So,
And
balik kay Sayan.
so
Balik
next year uli, ito na naman yung topic. Hopefully
No.
not.
Right. So, if you expected us to recall the 70s,
That's just a segue
we can
because
talk
with
about
good memories come bad memories. And thank you for the trip down memory lane, good and bad memories.
fully connecting it and braiding it to today, di ba? Because
Correct.
if you analyze your past and it doesn't have an
It's
effect
all
present, then it's not.
interconnected.
That's
Right.
just a joke in conversation. I mean, that's nothing. And
Right.
hopefully it's not that. Think about this, really read more. And I also am challenging myself to be more dispassionate about the Marcoses, like less feelings, less emotions. Let's just
More
face
facts.
more numbers, yeah, and there are numbers and they exist. And so yeah, no hate, no hate. Ayaw
Right.
nila yan, really. I just find it
We,
really funny when they say I graduated from Princeton and they didn't. I just think it's, oh, come on. That's
among
funny.
others, or
I,
war medals or whatever.
yeah, that's another thing. Wala na tayong chance mag-revise, Myrza. We're so recorded 24/7.
Oo
I
nga.
can't revise. Are you kidding me? Since Rocket came out and I mean, uh, there's a
Kahit may
challenge.
Photoshop pa.
There's a
Kahit,
challenge. There's a challenge to be consistent, no, which is very
right.
good. And
Nobody can lie about their age anymore because it's all online. Or their nose jobs, or their chin jobs.
true. However, there are some people who are really good at. Parang you can't see their before pictures. Like
They
even if you go,
bury their old pictures.
galing. But it's okay. In me, it's all right. I have to say this. The um, it's a Catholic metaphor, but I'm not very religious. But let's do it anyway. John Paul II was a pope when we were kids, and Mother Teresa, who lived when we were kids and actually visited Imelda Marcos in 1977, 1976. They are now saints. They're
Yes.
beatified. Normally, it takes centuries to have a saint approved, canonized. Why was it fast? Because their entire lives were documented
Right.
24/7. The prior saints had written accounts, witnesses, and tagal. They have to prove it.
Right.
But the Pope John Paul II became pope at the advent of CNN, which is a 24/7. They started 24/7 C-SPAN, and then Mother Teresa the same. So it was easy to document their lives and actually recheck what kind of lives they led and consistency, which is what we need for sainthood, I think. And I think it's the same with us. We're very
Right.
lucky slash malas slash lucky. We'll figure it out someday that we have a million sets of eyes on us because it also pushes you to have consistency and integrity. Not perfect, obviously not
Right.
perfect. I fucked up a lot. I mean, of course I made mistakes. I've tweeted very wrong things, but on the whole, there's a certain consistency required of us. And one thing I have always been consistent with is that the Marcoses damaged us, and it's okay to accept it as a given, and we proceed from there. And always based on facts. I used to be very emotional about it. I used to be very angry, like I felt it. Now I don't have much feeling. I just know that there are numbers. So can we proceed from those numbers?
Right.
I think that's my advice.
Right.
Okay.
Good. And
Hey,
we we can probably post sources for easy access for these facts. Uh,
yes.
I'm sure they are somewhere, or there are
Yeah.
lots of infographics. There's no more excuse not to know.
Remember, the goal is not hating them or vengeance, even. The goal, like, I'm very close to the family of Eman Lakaba, who was a poet who disappeared. I'm
Right.
close. I'm close. JJ Burgos is actually a friend of mine in Lourdes. I mean, he's the one who disappeared. Jonas, you know him as Jonas. It's very easy to go personal on this. It's very easy to go personal on this, and you can like proceed with that fire of anger because it's personal. When that wanes, and it will wane because the human being cannot be actively angry for more than X number of months, sit with it and say, where do I go from here? And what are the numbers? And what is real? And I proceed. What matters the most to me? What matters most to me is that they don't forget that Jonas is missing, that Eman Lakaba disappeared, that Boyet Chahano at 16 was tortured because Archimedes Trajano was tortured because he questioned Amy Marcos at a forum. It happened right after. And she was convicted in a Hawaii court for that. We should also remember Primitivo Mejares, who was
Wrote the conjugal.
he was the media consultant of President Marcos himself. He was tortured and he disappeared because he went as a witness to the U.S. Congress about how the Marcoses lived. Despite around the poverty that was happening, they were living in extravagance. And he went to trial for that. I mean, he went to trial. He went and gave a testimony in the U.S. Congress for that. And he was offered a trip home and he was never found again. And they found his son, Boyet, then 16, Lourdes School of Mandaluyong. Really, I mean, real people. And they found him tortured, his body tortured viciously. I saw the I saw the autopsy and I couldn't even go past the two lines. But legend has it that they asked his father to watch his torture before they killed
Oh,
him.
wow.
Well, fact is, Primitivo Mijares' remains was never found. He's never found. And he's the one that wrote Conjugal Dictatorship because he was an insider. He was Marcos's friend. So before this show, like when Myrza asked me, let's talk about martial law, I actually asked my eldest sister, my two older sisters, and a friend, what was it like to see President Marcos elected in 1965, and you had so much hope, and he was so fantastic with a beautiful wife, and you're so proud when they travel to other countries, really representing us, looking way more chic than Jackie O, at par with Gianni Agnelli's wife, and you're so proud. What was it like when you turned 10 and it started changing? Like, this was someone you admired. It was the hope of the Philippines. And then all of a sudden you're like, parang they're stealing from us. There must have been confusion too. And my eldest sister said, it was really difficult to realize that we didn't know him or that it was elected. So that's also a good lesson for us now. It's also a good election for us now. When you like a government official, you're not, di mo shota. You don't have to like him forever.
Hindi mo siya tatay.
If there are if there is a basis to actually stop supporting someone that is measurable, quantifiable, affects many people against the constitution, you can pull out support. It's fine. We can change. We're not robots that were programmed to obey here and we're there. That no. I think it was the generation before us that really had to feel the disillusionment, the crestfallen feeling na, oh, this was the best person in the Liberal Party before who became nationalist. And he topped the bar and he's so good looking and we like him. We like him to represent us. Grabe yung heartbreak pag na-realize mo, oh my gosh, hindi pala siya masyado magaling. And then, if you have mental non-steadiness, you will just be so stubborn about it and say, no, he's the best because I chose him. And apparently, you can't admit the mistake. You can't admit that you made a mistake when you person. Dude,
Rationalize na lang.
break up with his boyfriend that's
Hindi
not taking.
mabait siya. Hindi mabait siya talaga.
Break up with a guy who's a guy or girl. Well, I'm straight, so I'll just use guy. For universality. Break up with a person that you fell in love with and they are no longer taking care of you. You can break up with that. It's the same with government, guys. It's the same. Kahit nga marriage pwede. Di ba? So, self-care, guys. So, mental wellness is about self-care. Political wellness is also about self-care. You're going to have to care about yourself so much that you deserve that PhilHealth support.
Yeah.
And kahit yun na lang.
Yes. Whether for self or country.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, gang. Thank you for being here.
Sorry, I just
No. It was such a great discussion. Thank you for helping us ask the right questions. You once mentioned that your advocacy is the advocacy of questions. So
yes,
thank you for teaching us how to ask the right questions and helping keep hope alive and all of us mentally steady enough.
And the question now really is, what was that about? No, how the question really for martial law to end is, what does moving on from it mean? What does moving on from martial law mean? What does moving on from all this anti-Marcos sentiment mean? What does move on mean? Is it vengeance? Is it get all the money back? Is it, you define it. Define it for yourself. I have none. I have no. I can't dictate on you what moving on is from that. But when they say just move on, I sure hope they don't mean forgive. I sure hope they don't mean, all right, just keep that money, it's fine. I sure hope they don't mean no problem. Student leaders disappear, happens. No. Define what moving on from martial law is for yourself and proceed. And hopefully, your definition of moving on has what's the word? Has the privilege, no, not privilege, has the gift of being aligned with what is happening presently in society. And for me, it's justice. I named my dog Justice. That's moving up. In whatever form it takes, sana justice happens. like really happens.
Right. Right. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you so, Myrza. Oh my God, what an
Hope
afternoon.
to see you or not see you again on September 21, 2021.
Okay, if you're watching
All
this
right. Thank you
now,
for watching and thank you for being here. Thank you. Catch Gang on September 25 in Balik Kasaysayan, presented by the Ateneo.
yeah, Ateneo Center for Journalism.
Yes. All
Kasaysayan.
right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
We forgot to talk about the soap, but
That's
next
okay.
time.
Okay, that's just my coping mechanism. Because,
Right.
you know, I have to cope. Yeah.
Right.
Daming sabon. Ang dami ko nang nagawang sabon. Sarap
Oo
sabonin.
nga eh.
Daming masarap sabonin.
Attend your class, pero baka online na lang ngayon, right?
Yeah. Oy, Vice President Lenny Robredo can make her own soap now. She makes her own soap.
Wow, cool.
I don't know. I just mentioned it. Okay.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. This has been TikTok, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.